In the Cabrespine cave, there are fabulous, perfectly white bouquets blooming on the walls. The richness and beauty of these crystalline shapes created by capillary action is absolutely stunning. In nearby Limousis cave, clusters of aragonite have formed an enormous chandelier, said to be the largest in the world.
This masterpiece was sculpted by water, the delicate, patient work of a master craftsman. But water can also work in heavy, powerful strokes. Just like rivers above ground, underground streams cut into and wear away their stone beds, deepening them with powerful whirlpools, cascades, and rapids. Sand, gravel, and bits of rock carried by the stream chip away at the limestone, creating an incredible din that contrasts with the silence of dry chambers and galleries. At the end of its extraordinary dark journey, the torrent reappears somewhere in the open air, its waters calm or raging.
This thundering roar is the sound of a small river, barely several kilometers long, coming to life in the Jura Mountains. This is the Lison River. The Lison surges out into the sunlight from an enormous opening cut into the limestone cliff. The Lison Spring is one of the most beautiful examples of this phenomenon that can be seen in Europe. Several kilometers away, the Lison runs into the Loup, whose source is just as spectacular. The origin of these rivers was for a long time an unsolved mystery, until one day in 1901, when several tanks of absinthe exploded on the banks of another river, the Doubs, and the green, anise-scented beverage turned the Loup into a smelly, jade-colored cocktail.
Because underground streams are generally fed by rainwater, the river's output at these openings varies considerably with the seasons. This sometimes results in spectacular changes in landmarks. An immense basin lies at the foot of the high limestone cliffs in Fontaine de Vaucluse, France. In fact, it's the opening of an enormous vertical shaft at least 110 meters deep. The water level can rise here spectacularly during the flood season. But this is the dry season, and the cavity at the end of the shaft is almost empty. When the underground stream that feeds it fills with melting snow and spring rains, the water rises in the basin, surging from the bottom of the chasm as if it were spurting from a giant garden hose. The phenomenon is so remarkable that all underground rivers which reappear from ascending conduits are known as Vauclusian springs.
When the water begins to rise, not only does it fill the basin, but it sometimes overflows, periodically forming a rumbling torrent. At the low water mark, in other words when the spring is flowing at its lowest level, the underground stream creates a spring below the mass of fallen rock. The flooded Fontaine de Vaucluse chasm was explored by speleologists in diving suits as early as 1878. Later, Remote control devices were used to explore the shaft down to 105 meters.
Sumps and submerged galleries are obstacles to cave exploration, but they're also invitations to discover intact primitive worlds. Submerged underground caverns are probably the last uncharted territories of the European continent. Every year, several dozen kilometers of new galleries are explored. This kind of subterranean exploration requires not only skills in underwater diving, but also special speleological expertise. The Swiss are the uncontested masters of subaquatic speleology, followed closely by the Belgians, the English, and the French.
In the Fatima Plateau of Portugal, a French team is exploring the submerged Almonda cave network. This is the largest cave in Portugal, and 1/3 of the galleries are flooded. The divers here explore the cave at a depth of 15 to 30 meters. Safety measures are extremely strict. 2 tanks, 2 regulators, multiple lights on helmets, safety ropes, and the 1/3 rule, which stipulates that divers use 1/3 of their air tanks for the trip down, 1/3 for the trip back, and keep 1/3 as a safety reserve.
This kind of encounter during a cave dive is rather uncommon. This leather carp is probably very old, and he's taken up lodging at the entrance of a small submerged cave network. He won't risk adventuring into the deep sumps or galleries. There's nothing there for him to eat, and he wouldn't be able to survive. Rare and strange fish, perfectly adapted to subterranean life, are the exclusive inhabitants of deep cave chasms.
This is the most extraordinary animal in European caverns. It lives in the underground rivers in the Postojna region in Slovenia. It's known as a manfish and related to the Mexican axolotl. Not only does it have 4 strange legs, but it is also blind and has non-pigmented skin.
Except for their external gills, they're entirely white. They're batrachia and can grow up to 30 centimeters in length. They're easy to please. They feed on bacteria and organic waste.
There are about 30 species of chiropters in Europe. The word literally means winged hands. Although all caves don't have bats living in them, the flying mammals are undoubtedly the animals most often associated with the underground realm of caves and caverns. Bats' communal lifestyles and complex radar system show how highly developed they are. However, Europeans in the past often nailed live bats to barn doors to protect their animals, out of fear and ignorance. We were unaware of what elegant pilots bats are, just as we were unaware of the wealth and beauty of the world's caves and caverns. The bat is a symbol of man's ambivalent relationship with this dark underground universe, sometimes called the 8th continent.